Good morning, everyone. You're listening to Be the Change on WLTK-DB, Paranormal Talk Radio. My name is Christina Bloom, and I am your host. Today, we're going to be talking to just really one of the coolest people I know. She is amazing. Her name is Laurie Berube. She's a homesteader, intuitive farmer, herbalist, artist, and that's going to be just an amazing conversation with her. She's so much fun to talk to. A quick announcement. WLTK-DB is on several platforms, live and on repeat, that you can watch, and also on several podcast outlets. So make sure that you check us out on all of those. You can search by show name. So if you're looking for my show, just type in Be the Change and you will be able to find it. All right. So we're going to be talking about homesteading, organic farming, all kinds of fun stuff today. And this is going to be coming back to what I was talking about last week. Where am I putting my money? Where am I investing? Am I investing in my health? Am I investing in corporate America? Where we vote with our dollars, again, like I said last week. And it's really, really important that we make conscious choices about what we're putting in and on our bodies. And Laurie makes some amazing products that I use and recommend to people all of the time. And she'll be going into more details about that, but they're all natural, organic. She grows the plants herself. And it's just, it's amazing to me that we can go out and spend so much money on all these chemical laden things and all of that sort of things that aren't good for us that we put on our bodies as well as in our bodies. So let's talk a little bit about how we can do some research and find what's best for us and what works for us. Because if you're like me, you have tried a ton of natural products that just, I'm going to put that in quotes, natural products that just don't work as well as we would hope that they do. And that's why I love Berube botanicals. That's a big word, botanicals, so much, is because they actually work. You know, the muscle rub works really, really well. She has some ointments. We used it on my grandson's rash and it was gone in a day. So how do you know if you're getting actual organic and whole products? Again, do some research, read labels. Read the labels. If it's chemicals, it's probably not going to be very good for you. Although plants have phytochemicals in them, and there's that. And I will have Laurie talking about the differences with that, because believe me, she knows a whole lot more about it than I do. But we really need to focus on what's good for us and what's good for our families, because we have grown up in the last, I'm going to say 40, 50 years dealing with, excuse me, my nose just keeps itching, dealing with chemicals in everything from our food to our beauty products to our healthcare products. And we're seeing the results of that over time, where we're just not as healthy as we could be. We're not as strong as we could be because these chemicals are really not good for our bodies. All of this engineering and all of that. Whew, boy, you know, I was just thinking, I went for a walk this week. I mean, I walk a lot, but I was realizing that in the area where I live, we have something called an interurban trail. And it is a blacktop trail that goes, I think, about 30 miles from town to town. It connects several towns together. And what I realized is that they ran this entire trail, or most of it, right along power lines. So I have been walking on this trail for the last year or so and thinking that, wow, I am just really out of shape. What is going on here? And then I realized that there was a connection where the trail stopped, and then there was a connecting road, and then the trail picked up again. Well, on the connecting road, I wasn't walking along under power lines, and I felt better. So what was the point in putting a trail to have people exercising under power lines? I actually don't have an answer to that. Um, I'm not sure what the answer is to that, but I do know that when I was walking under the power lines, I was feeling like my energy was just being sucked out of me. And that's the other thing, is that, we have this great power grid system where our computers work and our lights work, and it runs our homes. And that's all fabulous. But at what cost? And why put something that's supposed to be healthy for people along power lines? Um, I'm actually going to find out the answer to that question because it's bothering me. So I'm going to find out the answer to that question. But we are so used to that sort of thing. We're used to having junk food. And I don't mean junk food like the stuff we choose to eat because it tastes good and we know it's bad for us. I'm talking about the junk food that has all of the additives and is made in factories as opposed to grown from the ground. We have so much of this stuff in our environment that we don't even know. Most of us don't know that we're harming ourselves. It's really important that if we want to change the world for our children and our grandchildren, we need to be the change by paying attention to what we're doing. We need to, excuse me, focus on putting our resources toward what we want for our families. It is just super important to me, especially now that I have a grandchild and I'm looking at his available food options. And believe me, his mom is on it. She is, boom, we're buying organics, we're doing all of this. And it's not like she has a ton of money to do that, but she really focuses where her money goes to get the best possible outcome for the health of her child. And I would hope that all parents do that, but you know what? I didn't. And I apologize to my kids all the time for it, because I just went where it was most affordable and I could get the greatest amount of food for the least amount of money. And that's a really big contributor to why we make those choices, because it is more affordable to buy the junk foods. And I would really want to hear Laurie weigh in on this, because she is such a proponent of health and eating healthy and moving our bodies, and moving forward with all of that. She's going to talk to us about natural pest control and companion planting and what is homesteading and how we can create the ripples in the pond that just continue to go out and make the changes. And I really feel like, right now in the Midwest United States, we're coming to the end of our harvesting season, but there's still a ton of like roadside stands and that sort of thing where we can get fresh produce. I support those as often as I can, as much as I can, assuming that they're, of course, being later in the season, they don't have the variety that they did, but eating seasonally is important. And, maybe adjusting our palates to eat seasonally, where in the fall we're eating more squashes and that sort of thing, as opposed to the bright greens and everything that we get during the summer. But, greens are important all year round. So there's that too. I feel like there is so much to say about this, and I just don't know enough personally to really make an impact on it. What I can tell you that we do in our home is that we are very careful about making sure that meals are as balanced as they can be. So we're not focused on like one food group all the time. And hopefully you're able to do that too. We have so many options available to us that, if we're looking at the same amount of money to buy all fresh organic produce and we leave with one bag of groceries, but we can buy this other stuff that wasn't grown organically, and we don't really know how it's been grown or what pesticides are on it, but we can get 2 or 3 times as much. Most of us are going to go for 2 or 3 times as much because that's what we can afford to do. And I am not judging anybody on that. I've been doing it my whole life. So I would like to also talk about why organic is so much more expensive. Or actually, it's not that the organic is more expensive. Why is the other stuff so cheap? I'm hoping that Laurie has some answers for that too. Why is the other stuff so cheap? The mass produced, and even the vegetables that are grown with massive chemicals. I don't know if anyone else has reactions to those, but when I was living out in the country a few years ago, I would actually have to leave my home in the spring and in the fall when they were spraying, because I would have such severe allergic reactions to those chemicals. And that's when it really hit me during the 9 years that I lived there, is what am I putting in my body? What am I putting in my body that's weakening my immune system? And really, that's what it boils down to, is that we are weakening our own immune systems by the way that we've been living and by not having fresh available produce for us. And that's another thing that Laurie's going to talk about. No matter where you live, you can grow some of your own produce. And she's going to talk about, maybe even if you live in a high-rise apartment with no patio or decking, that you can still grow food in your home. And she's going to tell us how we can do that. And so I'm really super excited about that. Let's talk a little bit about the steps that we can take towards self-sufficiency. And of course, growing some of our own food, even if obviously you can't grow all of your own food. And some of us working 2 and 3 jobs, it's hard to keep up with that. It's hard to keep up with growing our own food and being able to do that in addition to all of the other stuff that we're doing just to keep the ball rolling. But we're going to talk about some small steps towards self-sufficiency. And one of those steps is maybe even just growing your own herbs, rather than going and buying them off the shelf or the dried ones in the bottles, which I'm sure most of them are fine, but it tastes so much better when you grow your own. That's the other thing, is that it tastes so much better. I don't know a whole lot about I don't know if anyone else has done this, but I keep seeing ads for, buy a week's worth of meals for $60, and then it gives you all the ingredients and the directions and everything. And if that works for you, I guess great. I can't even imagine not just doing my own cooking, but I grew up doing my own cooking, so I guess that's why. There are just so many options available, and a lot of them are marked healthy that may or may not actually be healthy. And again, I have not done the research, but I feel like that's something that maybe I'll want to delve into in a future show. How healthy are these things actually? So, sorry, I'm just going to put something in the chat here. All right. So during the show, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat option, and we will do our best to help you answer those questions. And all right. So we're going to be bringing Laurie on in a few minutes. And so I am really super excited about this. I'm starting to talk in circles. So I'm going to shut up. And after the break, we're going to bring Laurie in, and maybe she can answer some of those questions I proposed. See you in a few minutes. Thanks.
We are living in rapidly changing times that can leave you wondering what steps to take next. Let Christina Bloom, spiritual advisor, help you find the clarity you need to move forward with confidence. Christina is a psychic with more than 20 years of experience in spiritual guidance and mediumship. She can help you find the answers when you have important decisions to make. In addition, she also facilitates past and other life explorations and soul retrievals. For more information on Christina's services, as well as her extensive list of classes, please visit her website at christinabloom.com. That's ChristinaBloom.com. To make an appointment or to book Christina now, send her an email, Christina@ChristinaBloom.com. That's Christina@ChristinaBloom.com.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm going to bring in our guest, Laurie Berube. She is the owner of Berube Botanicals. Hi, Laurie.
Hi, Christina. Thank you for inviting me to be on your show.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I've been to Laurie's house, and it is just the cutest little cabin in the woods. And it's just, look, it's beautiful with all the plants I just love it there. I go to her house to get peace when I'm on vacation, as weird as that sounds. So, Laurie, what was that?
I have to say my camera is carefully pointed so it looks very calm and zen, but there are many projects popped up around me, as you're aware of.
Nope, the screen for the same reason. So, Laurie and I just want to tell this story because I love this story and it's so much fun. And of course, I wore my Saranac Lake shirt just for you.
I appreciate that.
When I met Laurie, she was at an indoor farmer's market at the hotel where my husband and I were staying on vacation. And I was wearing this tie-dye shirt that had all of these positive words over it. And it's my Love Lingo shirt. And you'll meet Dave, who founded Love Lingo, next week. He's my guest next week. But I was walking through this crowd of people, and it was a crowd of people. This was before COVID. And all of a sudden, I saw this bright light coming from the end on the left side as I'm walking through. And it was Laurie's stand. And her stand was just emanating this amazing energy. It was just this beaming light coming from there. And she didn't have any extra lighting as far as I could tell, but it was just the energy that was coming out. And again, I'm wearing this tie-dye shirt with all these positive words on it. And she leans over and goes, "Your shirt makes me happy." And that's how I met Laurie.
I remember that day so clearly.
That was awesome. It's been the beginning of a beautiful friendship. So, all right, silly stories aside, what have you got going on the farm out there, which is beautiful, by the way? It's not just the cabin that's cute. The farm is beautiful. So,
well, we experienced our first freeze last night. So I went out and panic harvested tomatoes until dark. So every window in my house, this one included, has bowls of unripe tomatoes just waiting to do their thing. I'm getting the rest of my hemp out of the ground. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to dig up all of my valerian roots to make my tincture that's really popular. There seems to be a epidemic of insomnia. People can't sleep. They're restless. They're stressed. They're nervous. So I'm going to keep growing the valerian and making the tincture. It seems to help a lot of people.
Awesome.
And this is the time of year, it's such a busy season from March till pretty much the end of October. Everything I've grown and put all my hard work into, now it's time to enjoy the abundance of the harvest, get everything out of the ground, do some canning, some pickling, get everything squared away for winter so I can take a little time to rest and look inward and get back in my workshop and make jewelry. As soon as spring comes and the green is poking up in the gardens and the greenhouses, I am outside. And come mid-August, and I hate to admit this, but it's true, I am so ready for a rest. And I even start thinking about, well, it's going to snow soon, and it doesn't bother me at all.
I'm very much the same way. I love the snow. So tell us about some of your tinctures, because I know, well, I use the salves and the muscle rub, and I love them. I recommend them to my friends all the time. I even give away half-used jars of them so people can try them. And tell us how you came to that, because I think it's so cool how you come up with these things and they actually work better than anything I've ever tried to do before.
Well, first I will say that anything that's on my table or on my website are all plants that I've used on myself. They've all been plants that spoke to me in my journey of healing. I don't have anything on the table that I haven't extensively experimented on myself, or family and friends who are willing participants. The Valerian root tincture helps you sleep. The motherwort is a wonderful restorative herb for women, whether they are going through menopause or experiencing PMS. It's a blood thinner. It's a heart healer. Feverfew is great to prevent migraines, to ease headaches, to lower fever. Holy basil is probably one of my favorites. It helps your body adjust to change. It's an adaptogen. It helps you deal with stress. It lowers cortisol in the body, which is the fight or flight hormone that makes you gain weight around your midriff, which, yay, I'm experiencing that now.
Okay, so what was the wait. What was that one again?
That's the holy basil, also known as Tulsi or sacred basil.
Yeah, I'm going to make note of that because I got the same thing going on over here. So,
and I grow great big bunches of it to make tea all winter, and it just being around the plant is healing. I plant it near my cabbages to help deter cabbage worm. And walking through the field of Tulsi, it just sends up this divine fragrance. It almost transports you to another place. Smell and aesthetics, I feel, are really important on a farm too. If you go into a farm where your food and your medicine is being grown and it doesn't visually appeal to all of your senses, something's off. Where there's livestock, you shouldn't smell animal manure. Something's being mismanaged. I plant a lot of flowers and pollinator attractors in between my rows of vegetables. So it is just a booming oasis of hummingbirds and butterflies and bees. Walking through there it's hard to describe. I wish I had a little video clip for you. And now, that it's going to sleep, I take my rest in the winter and I look forward to it again the following year. And every year the garden is so different. It's if anything, it's a lesson in change and impermanence, because you can't recreate the same thing every year. It's always different. And you don't know which direction it's going to go, but it's an exciting journey.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And for those of us who are not experienced gardeners, like I've had one garden in my entire life and it grew like crazy. I could not keep up with it. But I was almost afraid to do it the next year because, after having one garden that was just amazingly prolific, I was afraid that maybe the next one wouldn't grow at all. So I wanted to actually talk to you. You said that you grow the flowers between the rows of the herbs and vegetables, right? So is that what we're calling companion planting? Because you had brought up companion planting when we had a discussion recently.
Yes, and there's certain plants that benefit other plants around them. Yarrow is a good example of this. Anywhere that I see yarrow growing in the garden, I let it grow. It just seems to bring health and vigor to whoever is growing around it. It's a natural insect repellent. Some plants just want to grow together. I've also experienced plants that don't like each other. This year, for the first time, I planted tomatoes and cucumbers near each other, and they did not like each other. Tomatoes and kale don't like each other.
Interesting.
Yep. So planting different groupings of vegetables and flowers and herbs together instead of one monoculture row you're creating like little mini systems of biodiversity. So it invites pollinators, it invites different insect communities, which we desperately need. It eliminates the use for pesticides, herbicides, which I would never use. I don't use any chemical fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, anything on the land. I think the land, the earth itself, it's a sacred thing. It's growing a garden is a spiritual experience. Like you don't want to pollute the temple.
Right.
So companion planting, and there's many, many books on the subject. I've just kind of used nature as my guide. You can reduce insect populations, increase health and vigor of other plants, invite pollinators in. I've had good luck interplanting hemp with brassicas, with kale, with broccoli, cauliflower. So there seems to be less insect damage, and for whatever reason, it works. So I don't question. I have an environmental science degree, but I have no accreditation for what I do. I just feel like I've been schooled by Mother Nature and made many mistakes along the way, and that's how I learned.
Right. So intuitive farming is really what you're talking about. That's using
intuitive, 100%. Yes. So Rudolf Steiner, who you've probably heard of, he founded the whole Waldorf school system.
Mm-hmm.
He coined the term biodynamics when he was during his lifetime in Austria, when he noticed there needed to be a complete overhaul of the farming system because soils were depleted, they were poisoned, they were growing poor, nutrient-less food. And he realized that soil is like a living thing. It's a valuable lifeblood of the planet, basically. You can't poison it and pollute it and expect to grow healthy food that's going to nourish your body with it.
Right. That seems so obvious, doesn't it?
It seems like common sense,
Yeah.
but since the Industrial Revolution, everything is bigger, better, faster, more. People want to produce more food on a larger scale, but we're losing quality and nutritional value. Something that you said earlier, just talking about food systems and why organic food is more expensive. I'll just give you a little example.
Okay. Oh, we have
strawberries. There's many strawberry farms, and they put out beautiful, abundant strawberries, and oftentimes they are sprayed with pesticides to keep the insects at bay. Well, I don't use any pesticides or anything like that, no chemicals. So I've spent a lot of time at night with a flashlight picking slugs off the berries, shooing away the chipmunks that come and take one bite and leave the rest of the berry. And at the end of the day, I've harvested, let's say, 5 pints of beautiful, perfect, usable strawberries. And I always put the nicest stuff out for the customers. And I eat, the stuff that has a little bite taken out of it or a little discoloration, because I know it's perfectly fine. I know how it was grown. But the consumer that's used to the big, beautiful, perfect stuff that's maybe sprayed or waxed in the grocery store or picked prematurely, and then different gases are added to it for it to ripen later to extend the shelf life. It's not a real representation of what a real fruit looks like. So where I might have spent many, many hours to get these 5 pints of perfect, beautiful strawberries ready for the consumer, the industrial farmer who's used all these chemicals has 50. So it's time and labor intensive. Time is valuable, especially to somebody who's farming. And the consumer who doesn't grow probably is completely unaware of this. A lot of times, I remember when I first started growing strawberries, I was married once and I had a husband at the time. He was a great guy, but he would always say, he'd look at the strawberries as they were going out the door and he'd say, well, when are we going to get to enjoy these? And I'd be like, well, I need to make my investment back and then we can. But that was always important to me, to put the best stuff out for people. Like, this is the fruits of my labor. This is the reward of my hard work. This is what I can share with you. And it's about health and vitality. And I mean, food is the front line of defense. It is the one distinction of how good or not your life is going to be, how healthy or how full of dis-ease you're going to be. It's all based on what you eat.
Your mom just popped in.
Oh.
That's my daughter. So very proud of her. God bless you. Thank you, Bunny. I love everything that you do. And I tell you, even when I'm on vacation, it's like I go to your place just to go. It's awesome. I love it. I was also going to ask you about homesteading. Now, in the last few years, or last couple of years especially, and believe me, I've been trying to find property near where you live. There's not much available.
No.
Because so many people have just discovered that Abigail popped into.
Oh, that's my sweet niece. She was my little farm helper for a few years. I miss her terribly.
I love it. So anyway, there's so many people that are like moving out of cities and moving out into the country and into the mountains. And again, if you've ever tried to buy land out there, good luck, because there's not much available. And what is available is incredibly expensive at this point. So I think a lot of people are like, I think I'm just going to leave the city behind and I'm going to go out in the country and I'm going to grow my own food and I'm going to do all these wonderful things. And they have no idea how much work it is. You know, it's like, oh, I can do this in, you know, when I'm not working my 9 to 5 on the computer in my home office. And I've tried that. It's hard. I mean, there's so much time that goes into it. And these people who want to move out and do that, God bless you. Good luck. And I hope that you can do it and do it well, because it's so important to the family's health. But the thing is, they want to go out and homestead. And I don't think that a lot of people really understand what that means. Can you tell us what homesteading is?
Homesteading, and I like to link the history of our forebears to this. There's like a pioneer mindset associated with it. It's like you go out and you lay claim to this piece of land and you make your living off of it. It's really hard to find true homesteading anymore. I have had to go work out jobs off the homestead to make ends meet. Homesteading differs if you're in the desert or if you're in a mountainous region. It's basically taking your piece of property, your little piece of land, whether it's an acre or 20 acres, and making your living off of it. And I have been very, very fortunate that I've been able to do that, but it took many, many years of hard work. I had lots of help from my family and friends. My husband at the time was vital in building the infrastructure of this farm. One thing I'll say about homesteading, if you're not all in, and especially if you're in a relationship with somebody and they're not all in, it will blow you apart. It is not a hobby or a project. It's a lifestyle. It is a commitment. It is a huge commitment. Friends that I have don't understand when they invite me to do things that my life is on a different time clock than theirs.
Right.
Evening time for me is, oh, it's time to close the chickens in. It's not, okay, let's go out and I can ignore all of my responsibilities at home and everybody's going to still be there in the morning. There's predators to contend with. There are storms. There's, I mean, a whole multitude of things that come along with growing. What can go wrong? Frosts, droughts, irrigation problems. But with homesteading, I started out thinking animal husbandry was the way to go. Years ago, I read this book by Helen and Scott Nearing, which changed my life. It was called Living the Good Life. And it was these people in Vermont, they wanted to homestead. They carved out a beautiful life, growing all these vegetables out of rocky Vermont soil, and they did it. And they cautioned against having animals. They said livestock are a quick way to go under. They use up resources, they're expensive. And I have always been sort of in love with goats, really wanted goats and chickens, so I ignored all of that and found out the hard way, the Nearings were right. However, I refuse to give up animals. I love my goats. They bring so much to the homestead. Milk, meat, hides, companionship. They're smart. They clear brush. The chickens and the ducks, I had quail for a while. They produce eggs. So that was a great way to start the homestead. And then I realized, okay, unless I can produce all of the food to feed them, I'm going to have to downsize the animals. And what is more sustainable? And that's when the herb business came into play. I had been a long time crafter, and this is where I'll pay homage to my mom. When you're kids, you know, your parents usually say, oh, you should go to college, you should go do this, you should go do that. My mother, from a young age, knew that I had my own sort of thing going on. I didn't really fit into I always felt like sort of a square peg trying to fit into a round hole. And she knew that about me. And she always, always encouraged me to do my artwork. And that was always a comfort to me. A big part of how I survived on my homestead was I took the cold winter months to make jewelry, and that provided enough income to keep on going until the next season. The herbal business happened because I was studying all these plants, and they just kind of spoke to me, certain plants. And on my journey of healing, I noticed that just being around certain plants is healing, even if you're not ingesting them. Just being in their company, being around their energy. And I could talk about that for hours, but I'm going to try to stay focused. So I noticed I was going to all these shows, you know, selling jewelry that I made, and I was making all these herbal products for myself, but family and friends were like, no, geez, this really works, and we like this. This is what people want. Bring this to your jewelry shows and put this on your table. And I started doing that, and over time, the herbal products were kind of pushing the jewelry aside, and that's what people wanted, and that's how I was really earning a decent living. And I decided to expand that. And luckily, all of these different little side industries have allowed me to work full-time on this homestead.
That's awesome. And again, I can vouch for your products because I use them and they're amazing.
Thank you. I love to hear that. It's very validating. Everybody says, oh, this works great. Of course, they're going to promote their own product. I just try to not say too much, just be very transparent, tell people how it's grown. I feed the soil. I don't use any chemicals or pesticides ever. I invite people to come over. Just give me a heads up so I can sweep my floor first. I think transparency is very, very important. If you are using products from a company and they don't want to give you any information about how it's grown or where it's grown or how it's made, I would be very cautious, because that is suspect, non-transparent behavior, and you have to wonder.
Right.
So back to the homesteading part.
Yes.
It's a great dream. It takes many years of hard work and dedication. This little oasis in the woods that I absolutely love. This brings me comfort, peace, joy. It's my little hideaway from the chaos of the outside world. It didn't come easy. I bought this place, 20 years ago now. It had no plumbing. It was really run down, and it was dirt cheap because the bank wouldn't even give me a loan to buy it because it was not inhabitable. Well, I inhabited it and I made it work. And I got different grants for, I got a grant for a drilled well. And before that, for many, many years, I just used, there was a natural spring on the property. And that was my water supply, and that was okay, except in the winter it would freeze, and I had to unhook everything I had rigged up in the house and haul buckets of water inside. And then when I had animals, I was hauling buckets of water to them. And I thought, boy, you know, I can see why people gave up. I was really, really fortunate that there was a spring on this property. That's the lifeblood of this whole operation. And I also felt very very lucky. Like I felt like this was a very magical place. A lot of people believe there's more spiritual activity around springs, and I know that's true. I can just go up there and sit by the water, and I feel this energy come over me. I feel renewed, refreshed. This is a very healing place. It has like a higher vibration than any other place I've lived. So when I heard through word of mouth that this property was available, I came and looked at it, and I had heard from the seller, oh, it was an old hunting camp. So I envisioned timber frames and antlers and furs, and I showed up, and it was a 1957 dilapidated old turquoise trailer with an addition built off the side. So I was like, okay, I was a little disappointed, but I blocked out the structure, and I thought, how do I feel about the land? And I kept coming back and just walking around the property, and it just pulled me right in. I was like, this is where I need to live. And I believe that if you are a good steward of the land, you were talking earlier how it's hard to find land and hard to buy it. I really think that if in your heart you're a good steward and you care about the earth, the actual land, and you're going to tend it carefully and you're going to treat it with respect, land will find you. And
Oh, absolutely.
And it's a big responsibility. And it's like there are shortcuts and there are easy ways to do things, and I won't take any shortcuts. I refuse.
So this little, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so the little 3/4 of an acre that I started with, now the trailer's gone. It's a cute little bungalow. You can only see one section. This is the most organized spot in the house right now. So that turned into 23 acres. And I've been leasing some property down the road in the field where I have another greenhouse and a big garden where I grow my hemp. And that is 47 acres, and I'm going to purchase that too, hopefully by the end of the year.
Nice, nice.
And that is all divine blessings. That's not, it's not all me. I feel like that's from being a good steward.
That's awesome. And I can certainly vouch for the spirits on the land. I know because I've been there and I've seen them. And you have these amazing indigenous spirits on that land that just, they're guards and they're protectors of you and what you're doing there. And I feel like that has a lot to do with how everything grows too, combined with your knowledge. You know, all of it together just comes together, and it's just such a beautiful place.
Thank you.
Let's kind of move on to, not everyone has that, and the majority of people live in cities. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of people like myself. I don't have any, I live in a beautiful condo, but I don't have any outside space. I don't even have like a little patio where I can do anything. Everything I do has to happen inside my condo. So if I was going to grow some of my own food or herbs or whatever, what would you suggest to people who live in a situation like mine where we don't have all of that outside space to grow in? What would you suggest for us?
If you have even a front yard, you can grow abundant squashes, brassicas, tomatoes out of straw bales. If you are in a high-rise apartment and you have no outside space to grow, you would be amazed what you can grow in little trays with under $100 set of grow lights that you could grow all year long. You could grow trays of microgreens, which are high nutrient, high density, green, organic goodness to put in your body. Like you said, you could grow herbs. I'm not a fan of hydroponics or any alternative growing mechanism that doesn't include soil. Put your plants in the soil. Microgreens, herbs, you can grow tomatoes in buckets in your living room. Here's a little tip, and there's YouTube videos. You can get romaine lettuce, onions, celery from the grocery store, and when you get to the little end of it, you can plant that and regrow a whole new plant.
That actually works?
Yeah. Yes. My father's all excited. He grows celery out of old spent celery, ends from the grocery store, and lettuces and onions. It actually works. Look it up on YouTube. There's so many things you can do. There's so much waste out there. And if you do this and your neighbor does this and the person down the hall does this and you all grow something different, you can trade. And even if you're in a city, you're strengthening the local food economy because you guys are growing it.
And I
And
think
what-
that's such an important thing, because in cities there are food deserts.
Yep.
Where you can't get in some areas healthy food. You're kind of stuck with the local convenience store if you don't have
Can you
transportation.
excuse me for just a second? I'm going to silence this
Absolutely.
ringing phone. Just a moment.
Yep.
I'm so sorry about that. I had to wade through, it looks like Cambodia in my living room right now. I have all these plants hanging from the ceiling and I kind of have to do this to get through. I think what you said about voting with your food dollars or voting with your dollars, it's so true, and people don't realize how much an impact they have with their money. If they would just say, I'm not going to buy from this company because of their practices, that company will be forced to change their ways. Go back to what you were saying about food deserts.
Okay, so I was actually talking to another guest that I had a few weeks ago, Brian Kopic, who is a health coach for people my age. So, but he was talking about, well, in our private conversation, food deserts, where people who live in urban areas and maybe don't have a car, or don't have transportation or a lot of money. What they'll do is that they'll go to their local convenience store, because that's the only place where they can really get anything to eat, except that it's all convenience foods and it's all junk foods. And so people can't necessarily get the nutrition that they need. But for that same amount of money, I mean, obviously they have to eat while the plant's growing, but for the same amount of money, they could be growing some of their own foods. And like you said, start a co-op in your own building. Maybe the person down the hall is growing tomatoes and you're growing cucumbers, and maybe the next person is growing kale and microgreens. And I actually want some more information on microgreens too. But I like the idea that you can kind of circumvent the food desert type thing, at least to some extent, by growing your own produce.
If you grew a pot of kale and your neighbor's growing something else, I mean, you can share and have variety. And if anything, any kind of growing, anything based around food, farming, builds community.
Right.
And I had a lady come help me once do some weeding, and she kept saying, yep, it takes a community. You know that saying, it takes a village to raise a child? I was like, yep, it takes a community to build and support a farm. It takes a community. And I finally got what she was saying. It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
So even just such a small scale, growing in a high-rise, building, put up a local sign in the maid room or in the elevator, like, let's get together, let's have a meeting, let's do this. I mean, it's fun, it's easy. People have no idea how easy it is. Ag is not taught in schools anymore. You can graduate high school without knowing how to plant a seed and grow a flower. That boggles my mind. Yeah. I was very fortunate. I grew up with a dad who gardened, and I spent many hours in the garden with him. I learned a lot from him. In today's day and age, you can go through the whole system without knowing how to read or knowing how to grow anything.
Oh, I know.
And just a little YouTube search, you see how easy it really, really is.
Yeah, you've inspired me. I'm going to go put a sign up in our community room and let's grow some stuff, people. Let's help each other out here. And I have a feeling some of the people in my building, they've been here forever, and I think that they're growing some of their own stuff. I feel like it's so important to be able to have some control over the food that you get. I just feel like that is just so important. And when you're doing that, we, in a conversation we had a couple of days ago, we were talking about the ripples in the pond and paying it forward. And that's certainly a way that we can do that, where, we're growing our own foods, and we're eating our neighbors' foods, and they're eating our foods. And so we're not spending as much on groceries either. There's the initial setup cost, which is not expensive at all. So,
I'm shocked by the prices of food when I go in the grocery store, because I don't shop for conventional foods very often, but I need like butter and flour
Mhm.
and different supplies. And when I go in there, I'm amazed. I'm like, this is what people spend every week on food. It's
Yes.
expensive, and it's anything that's not on the outer aisles, anything that's in a package or a box or a kit is suspect. Read the labels. It's full of chemicals. It's not good for you. Your body doesn't recognize it as food. It causes obesity and diabetes and inflammation in the body. It's not real food.
Right. And
Um,
then that feeds into a health system that's also, I'm going to say it, it's corrupt. Our
oh, it's
health system
definitely
is
corrupt.
corrupt, and it starts with our food. And uh, I do want to take a little veer off the food because you talked about your art. I want to see your necklace. Can you show us your necklace?
Oh, this I didn't make, but
Okay.
it's a Navajo squash blossom necklace. I don't know if you can
Oh,
see, but I have a little collection of these going.
that's
Um,
beautiful.
there's many many different interpretations on the meaning of it. I just think it's a thing of beauty, and the Navajo used to wear their wealth. They put all of their beautiful silver and gems on and like be proud of it. And it's also kind of a symbol of how different cultures come together and influence each other, even though they may be completely unrelated. For example, the Naja, the crescent-shaped pendant. This is commonly seen in the Middle East. So way back when the Moors, who were Muslim, came and conquered Spain, they brought this symbol with them, and they used it as a symbol to ward off the evil eye. So the Spanish assimilated it into their culture, and soon this Naja, this upside down crescent, was found in the bridles of their horses and adorning their horses' bridles. So rumor has it that when the Spaniards moved into South America, the conquistadors would have these decorating their horses, and the Navajo absorbed that into their culture. And then these, which people call the squash blossoms, are actually little pomegranate flowers that were adorning the buttons on the coats of the conquistadors. And the natives copied that and learned how to make these, these little squash blossoms. So years and years later, okay, suddenly it's part of their culture. And this becomes a symbol of the womb and of crop fertility. And people associated this squash blossom with the Navajo because it was such a source of sustenance for their culture. But if you look way back, they were actually little pomegranate blossoms on the coats of the conquistadors.
Wow.
So how did the Moors from the Middle East travel through time and blend cultures with the Navajo? It's a great story.
It
But
really is.
what I like about it is this is a man's life. I mean, many, many, many hours of somebody's handiwork went into this. I treasure it because I know how much work it is just to do silversmithing and to take the raw materials and turn it into a beautiful piece of art. And I still secretly like the evil eye protection. Even though I don't think there's any evil eyes on me, I appreciate anything that makes me feel grounded and protected. And I always feel just protected when I wear a squash blossom.
I'm just going to toss this out there. You just said that on a radio show. It's no longer a secret. Just say.
You always wonder who's going to be listening.
Well, while you were dealing with your phone, your mom's neighbor popped in and another family member of yours popped in to say hi and how proud they are of you. So
I wish I could see it.
Pamela Sherritt, am I saying that right?
Oh, yes. She's great. She checks in on my mom all the time.
That's awesome. And then Sandra. Thank you for posting it.
Wow, I feel supported. I am no longer on Facebook, so most of my family are on Facebook. So I didn't have a way to share it. Robin Dahl, do you work with moon cycles and growing your gardening? Absolutely, 100%.
Can you talk about that a bit?
Yes. Okay. So one of the tenets of biodynamic gardening is working with your farm as a whole system, feeding the soil, working in harmony with nature's rhythms. A big part of knowing when to plant, when to harvest, when certain parts of the plant that you're growing are affected is planting according to lunar cycles. And some people say, ooh, biodynamics, it's witchery, it's hoodoo and all of that. It really isn't. If you've ever followed the old farmer's almanac and their moon cycles and when to plant certain things, surprise, that's biodynamics. And they knew that way back when.
Right.
There are certain times, so the moon is orbiting the earth, and as it makes its cycle, it travels through different constellations. And these, for whatever reason, the marvels of nature, however this works, different plant parts are affected. That is why when the moon is waxing and you're coming towards a full moon, things are up, they're growing on top of the surface, they're blooming, they're coming to fruition. Don't plant potatoes then. When the moon is full, wait till it's waning and that power is drawing back down into the earth. That's when you put your root crops in. It takes a little while to gain the knowledge of when and where and what to plant. It took me 10 years of figuring out what to plant when. And this is its own unique little microclimate up here in the mountains. So that's where intuition plays a part. You just feel, okay, today's the day to go harvest those flowers. Today's the day to collect seed. Today's the day to put my root crops in. And that's just from doing it, it becomes second nature. It becomes an intuitive practice. You just know.
Yeah.
So yes, definitely I plant according to lunar cycles and I harvest according to lunar cycles unless there's a frost coming like last night and I have to panic harvest. And I do that.
Well, you do what you have to do. And I have to say, living in a place where I don't really have, I mean, we have shared outside access, but you can't really plant anything and they spray and all kinds of stuff. So I feel like I'm disconnected from nature a lot because I can't just walk out my door and go to my garden and walk among the plants. And I'm really grateful to have you come on the show and show us how we can bring some of that indoors so that we're not feeling so closed off from our natural habitat, because we are nature too. We're not a separate thing from nature, but
Right.
I feel like the way a lot of us are living makes us feel that way. And so
And I feel fortunate that I feel very much like I'm a part of nature, not apart from nature.
right,
I am a part of nature. Am I going to be a good steward or am I going to be a destroyer?
right,
One thing about your living situation, with a little research, I mean, cities everywhere have community gardens, little urban farms
right.
that would gladly take volunteers, other people to grow. There's community gardens springing up everywhere.
There
That
really
disconnect
are.
from nature is it makes me sad to think about it. It's like we live in this world of marvels. I mean, some of my most mystical, life-changing, transformative experiences happened in the garden. And to
Right.
try to explain those things to people, sometimes you got to keep those little gems to yourself, because if somebody doesn't understand, they may discount it, or people try to categorize and put in a box what they can't understand. And maybe they didn't have those experiences, so they may try to discount yours. So if you've had those experiences, shh, keep that in your heart. That's for you. I just feel like, especially with food shortages and everything going on with COVID, people realize that the food economy is fragile.
Mm-hmm.
And if people just got together and had a conversation and talked about it, there are so many ways you can grow food in your home. Behind me, there's 2 sets of grow lights. I'm in such a dark, limited, short growing season up in the mountains. The Adirondacks are dark.
Mm-hmm.
I would not be able to do what I do without grow lights. And it was, for a small investment, it's started me off on my journey. I mean, anybody in your
Yeah.
building could do this.
Yeah. I think it's a time to have a conversation, see if anyone bites. Awesome.
No
Laurie, I
pun
can't,
intended.
no pun intended. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing your vast knowledge and your wisdom. And I am just so grateful that we are friends. I'm so grateful that we met. And I can't wait to see you in February when we're going to do a live show together on one camera. It's going to be a blast.
I am really looking forward to it. There's probably going to be a lot of laughs.
Oh, probably a lot of laughing. Right. Absolutely. So I like to end my show with a guided meditation. So if you'd like to stick around for that, you're welcome to.
Sure.
And so if everyone, unless you're driving, sit back, close your eyes, relax. Just take a few deep but comfortable breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. And just feel the air. It's just moving through your body as you inhale. And just visualize that oxygen just moving through your whole body and energizing your muscles and your blood flow. And just feel how it grounds you as you're inhaling and gently exhaling. And visualize each one of those oxygen molecules as bringing nutrients to your body. As you inhale, and then as you exhale, visualize anything that's not good for you leaving your body. And just keep breathing in a rhythmic pattern, inhaling health, exhaling illness. And as you're doing that, visualize how you can change your diet. Visualize growing your own foods and how good those foods taste. Inhaling health, exhaling illness. And just keep doing this rhythmic breathing for as long as you're comfortable. And I thank you all so much for being with us today, and have a blessed week. Namaste.
Namaste.